Bună seara, doamnelor și domnilor! Vă mulțumim că sunteți alături de noi. Ascultați Radio AVFM, Vocea Europei.
Jó estét, hölgyeim és uraim! Köszönjük figyelmüket! Önök az a AVFM Rádió Európa hangja műsorát hallgatják.
And, good evening ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in. You are listening to A Voice for Men Radio, the voice of Europe. A Voice for Men is the flagship of the men's rights movement. And this show is probably the only one at this point addressing the issues concerning men and boys at a European level. If you ever thought that there's something wrong regarding the state's approach to men and their issues, this is the best place to start. This is the place where feminism gets to be called out on its lies and propaganda, and the state is invited to get out of people's lives. Please consider visiting avoiceformen.com and see how the truth in action sounds like. We are here and we don't plan on leaving anytime soon. And now, Lucian Balzan shall bring us on today's topic.
And we're back. Greetings, everyone. This is Lucian Volsan, broadcasting from Cluj-Napoca, Transylvania. As usual, alongside with me is Jon Gunnarsson, broadcasting from Deutschland, and our producer, James Huff, broadcasting from the United States. Hello there, everyone. Hi there, Jon.
Well, hello there. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing just fine now that finally my neighbor has stopped doing whatever he was doing that was keeping everyone without hearing. And other than that, I'm actually quite grateful that we finally have some relatively, how do I put it, colder weather, even though cold is too much of a harsh term. Essentially 21 degrees in Celsius, which is breathable. How about on your end?
Over here the weather is somewhat on the cold side, but it's okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, the weather forecast says that as of next week, again, the extreme heat will come back, thanks to some air group that is coming from the south, from the Serbs and from the Greeks. Okay. That's not going to be nice, actually, because again, that would mean that I'll be having difficulties in breathing. Anyway, let's stop wasting time and let's go straight to the news.
Let's do it.
You are listening to AVFM Radio, the voice of Europe. This is the news.
Okay, the first one from the local.se, Swedish feminists hit by Facebook like attacks. Swedish party, the Feminist initiative, has been overwhelmed by Facebook likes, with the South American hackers thought to be the source of the unwanted favoritism. The Feminist initiative, the FI, which has been enjoying a boost in support and membership since the spring, has received some 60,000 new likes on its Facebook account since Wednesday. Whilst this would seem like good news for any political party with a general election around the corner, the hollow faceless affection has, however, been rebuffed by a party spokesperson. Our credibility very much lies in that those who want to participate in our movement do so of their own free will, the party's PR head Amanda Mörgensen told the TT News agency. The party has now contacted Facebook to try to get to the bottom of the matter. According to the Resume newspaper, the Green Party gained some 50,000 likes last week following a hacker attack with its roots in South America, and there are suspicions that the Latin hackers could also be behind the newfound fondness for FI. Political parties and other groups are regularly accused of buying likes to boost their image, and Muriensen told the newspaper that FI is particularly at risk owing to their recent dramatic turnaround in voter affections. In contrast to other parties who have a very tight budget, we have a very tight budget and our communication is primarily based on volunteers and social media. She said, "We will just have to be accountable for this and that some people may think we have bought likes. FI has previously been subjected to attacks originating from Turkey, which increased their number of likes dramatically, and on that occasion they received help from Facebook to sort the genuine suitors from the charlatans." So essentially, not enough people like us, that's oppression. Too many people like us, that's also oppression. Who the fuck can understand the Swedish feminists? Other than that, didn't we just presented evidence that they actually bought likes? And we did that like a month ago. I presented screenshots and things of that nature. It's just an established fact that they bought. How the hell did they fool the entire Swedish media that, oh, but no, that was another attack originating from Turkey? Bullshit!
Yeah, I mean... we've documented on the show how much the Swedish media like the feminist initiative, so it's hardly surprising that they would believe what they're telling us. And this story just seems like it's really bizarre. Like, why would someone want to attack feminist initiative by giving them likes on Facebook? I mean, that doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, well, actually, I found an answer to that question. Essentially, according to the new Facebook policies, if you have a huge amount of likes on Facebook, essentially your message gets across to fewer people because, you know, only a small amount of quote-unquote supporters on the page get the message for free. Other than that, you have to pay to Facebook in order to get it to the news feeds of all the people in the supporter base. So essentially, if you have I don't know, let's say 10,000 genuine supporters and 80,000 sock puppet accounts, in theory that could lead to less than 10,000 people actually getting the message, and a portion of them being from the sock puppet accounts, so essentially diluting the message. That would be in theory. In practice, however, given that FI has constantly asked its supporters to, there is a setting that you can do on your Facebook account to essentially receive the message from a particular page, no matter whether they paid for it or not. I don't think that's the case in FI's situation. Also, I'm pretty much not so sure about this portion of the article in which the PR person says, "Oh, in contrast to other parties, we have a very tight budget." Really? As far as I know, and I could be wrong, and the Swedes listening to me now can please come into the chat room and correct me, but other parties in Sweden could not afford to burn 100,000 svenska kronor, which is something like 10,000, 11,000 euros, something like that, just to prove a point, just to make a point. I don't know about that, the tight budget part. I mean,
when did they do that? What are we talking about?
2 years ago, they went into a protest to protest capitalism, and they burned 100,000 Swedish kronor. They literally burned 100,000 Swedish kronor, yes. So, I don't know. I just don't know any other Swedish political party, or any other political party in Europe for that matter, that can afford to burn 11,000 euros, to literally burn the banknotes, the bills. So, given that situation, I'm not really ready to believe that, oh, but we have a very tight budget. Also, there is another funny part. Crap, I lost the link. I'll put it when this goes up on YouTube. I'll put it. The Feminist Initiative is now employing a secretary. And it's funny to read the requirements. You need to be versed into the gender power structure narrative, and you have to have experience in parliamentary work. essentially the person that they're requiring does not exist, because the only people who have experience in their narrative are FI members, and none of them has parliamentary experience. So, and of course, you have to be very good in Swedish, and not just to be very good in Swedish, in the Swedish language, but be good in the politically correct Swedish language, you know, with all the sensitivities that the feminist initiative imposes upon the Swedish language.
Yeah, obviously.
Amazing. Amazing. So if they're really on a tight budget, how come they're employing people these days? They're buying likes. I don't know. That doesn't sound like a tight budget to me.
Maybe because they're doing all these things and they burn all their money, they're on a tight budget now.
Yeah.
We burned up all our money, so what do we do now?
Yeah, essentially, yeah. Damn it. And we have to remember, essentially now they're very, very concerned that, you know, right after the European elections that were this year, they were very, very sure that they will get at least 4 or 5 seats in the Swedish Riksdag, the Swedish Parliament, you know, now the polling, there is a polling institute, I always forget its name, who predicts most of the things, and almost always they get it right. They predicted that they'll barely get 1 seat, and they're very concerned that, you know, what did we do wrong to get to lose so much of their support? Well, probably the calling for re-education camps might have something to do with it. I'm just saying. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, moving to the next one. Oh my god. This is from freeatidde.se. This is, oh Jesus Christ. This is so stupid that... Hen nya benamningen på byggnadsanslut. Hen, the new pronoun in the Construction Workers Union. The Congress of the Construction Workers Union has decided that its members should be referred to as sexless hens, reports SVT. Sounds so weird in English. Sexless hens. Anyway, the chairman, Johan Lindholm, hopes that the trendy pronoun will lead to more women and immigrants to join the union. Quote, "This is an important demonstration of equality we are making for anyone who wants to join and feel welcome in the construction industry and in our union. Today, 1% of the membership is female and 99% is male. We want to change that," says Johan Lindholm in a press release. The decision was made at the Congress that took place in June, and from now on, hen is to replace he and she in the general statutes of the union. The Federal Secretary of the Union, Patrick Ustberg, said in a recent interview on SVT that the use of gender-neutral pronoun is going to lead to more feminist members. I think it makes a big difference. It is indicative of the changes of attitudes on our construction sites, he says. Linguist Lena Lind from the Language Council, however, believes that there is a risk that the pronoun is normalized and then spread. When even the male-dominated construction union uses the words in its bylaws, it contributes to a sort of normalization. There are often examples of people calling authorities and ask if they can use the word hen, but they do not want to be in the forefront, but wait to see what everyone else does. So it's interesting that the Construction Workers Union chose to take the lead, she says to SVT. Hen occurs 13 times in the new statutes on page 37. However, it has accidentally replaced the object form of the masculine pronoun, honum, or him, which is also relevant for the masculine demonstrative pronoun denne, or to him. So I don't know how to put it in English. A pronoun that occurs in several places in the statutes. So essentially, they mutilated the Swedish language to such an extent that it's impossible even for a native Swede to understand whatever the fuck goes on in those statutes, all in the name of what? Attract more feminist members, and also this we're gonna attract more immigrants. Dudes, most immigrants don't speak Swedish, and if they do, they learn it in a proper college formal place where they don't teach hen, by the way. I mean, there's no place there are quite a lot of places in Europe. The 2 of them are here in Romania, 4 in Poland, or 4 or 5 in Italy. There are quite a lot of places in Europe. in every single one of them, and I checked for most of them, they don't teach about hen, and they never will. So,
yeah, that with the immigrants, it doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, I could understand how someone might think that using hen would bring in more women, but more immigrants? Why?
I don't even understand how that would bring more women. I don't
agree with that, but I can sort of understand how someone might think that, who's a feminist or something. But even from a feminist perspective, it doesn't make any sense to think that more immigrants will come in.
Yeah, I mean, immigrants either don't speak Swedish at all or have no idea what hen stands for. So, yeah. And then again, wouldn't women join a construction union only if they choose to work on a construction site and have the capabilities to do so, which is very rarely happening anyway?
Oh, no, you see, women actually would like to work on construction sites, but they just don't because they don't want to be associated with male pronouns. So that's why they don't work as construction workers.
Right. And now, putting feminist hat on, isn't it a bit condescending to women to tell them that their preferred pronoun is hen? Maybe they don't like that. Maybe they want ze, or gze, or ji. I mean, isn't it a bit condescending? Feminist hat off. I mean, seriously. Seriously.
I think maybe they should, whenever a new member joins up, they should ask that member what his or her or its preferred pronoun is, and then make a special printing of their document and send that document with the special pronoun to that member.
Yeah. And again, we're laughing, but this is a huge development. Actually, it's not really a development, but anyway, progress. Because, this union, Big Nuts, is the trade union, according to their website, I'm reading it, is the trade union for all construction workers in Sweden. Roughly 80% of the people working on building sites in Sweden are members of Big Nuts. And in major cities and town, it is common to have a level of affiliation of 100%. It says on their website, on the English version of the site, bignuts.se, you'll find it. So if this... I don't know if it's sad or funny or both. I mean, shouldn't a union be more concerned on, the reason why a union exists, which is essentially to do collective bargaining on the wages of the workers? And shouldn't they be concerned about that, and instead of sanctimonious bullshit such as hen or... just asking.
I just thought of another reason why this doesn't make sense from a feminist perspective, because after all, the purpose of a union is to raise the wages for the workers and get better working conditions. But from our feminist science, we know that women actually make less money for the same work. So bringing in more women would lower the wage rate. So that doesn't make any sense.
Okay, according to feminist science, that's actually quite convincing. Okay, Jesus Christ, Sweden. Oh, anyway. Going to the next one.
Okay,
that's from you, I think, yeah.
That's from me. And it's a piece of news from Britain, from the Mirror. It's called Man Can't Get Refund on 31,000 pound child support payments despite DNA proving he's not father. A man claims a child support agency is refusing to refund him £31,000 in payments he made for someone else's daughter. Stephen Carter has been involved in an 11-year dispute with the CSA after he was accused of being the father of a girl he has never met. DNA tests taken this year by Stephen and the girl, now aged 22, finally proved they were not related. But furious Stephen, aged 49, said the CSA have rejected his demands for the money to be paid back. He said, "I had a one-night stand with the mother of this girl on 2 occasions. She was with a boyfriend at the time. She obviously looked at me like a cash cow. It was a fling. 23 years ago, and the girl is now 22 years old. I work in a nightclub, and the CSA contacted my employers and took my money. They accepted her word with no proof at all. I always said she was not my child. I wore protection, which I now know is not 100%. But from day one I knew she was not my child. Now the British government seems to be penny pinching off me. I work all the hours I can every day and have not had a holiday in 9 years. I've had to borrow £20,000 from my father to keep going. Over the years the CSA has taken all my money. But I'm not giving up on this. I don't care what it costs. I don't know if the girl knows who her real dad is. I feel sorry for her, but I have had no contact with her mother. I would not know the girl if she walked past me in the street. But whoever her biological father is has got away with it and not paid a penny. End quote. Security boss Stephen, who suffers from dyslexia, had payments of £86.31 per week deducted from his salary by the CSA from June 2007 until April this year. He paid £1,000 to take a private DNA test in February. But Dad of Two, Stephen, from Exeter, said the CSA has refused to repay him the money, even though officials promised in 2 separate letters that he would get a rebate if he was proved not to be the girl's dad. One letter written by a CSA manager in August 2013, referring to a private DNA test, said, quote, "If this shows that he is not the parent of the child, then he will be refunded back any money he has made." End quote. But a Department of Work and Pension source said such a rebate would not be considered if the paternity test was taken after the child had become an adult, and the case was closed. A DWP spokesman said, "If a person continues to make child support payments for year after year, the assumption has to be that they accept parentage. When there is a dispute, then the onus is very much on the father to prompt action and have a paternity test, rather than pay and wait until the child is an adult. Reimbursements can only be considered after a paternity test is taken." But Stephen's lawyer, Kate Baker, said, "We have not been provided with any legislation from the CSA which justifies them withholding payment to our client."
Well, this article makes it far more complicated than it is. I mean, the DWP spokesman says reimbursement can only be considered after a paternity test is taken. Okay, the test has been taken. These are the results. Show me the money. I think it should be that simple.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite clear on this case why the purported father didn't, appeal this earlier, or maybe he tried, but he couldn't, or something. I'm not quite sure why he paid for the child all these years, even though he says he knew that it wasn't his daughter.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but and you know what's the sad part? We'll never know why. And the reason that for that is because up until July last year, the proceedings of the family courts in the UK have been totally secret. I mean, literally 1 year ago, it would have been far easier to find out about certain operations conducted by the MI6 than to find out information about the proceedings of a family court. No, seriously, this is the truth. And considering this aspect, we might never know why, because maybe he appealed, but given that if he did appeal, he definitely is under a gag order not to talk publicly about that, because that was the standard operating procedure, and it still is in some cases, but to a lesser extent today, which is a good thing. UK is slowly moving away from a secret family court system. But even if he'd never appealed, and even if, it doesn't matter. These kinds of things should be solvable at any moment. I mean, the truth doesn't change, from 20 years from now, or today, or 20 years ago. The truth is the same. The kid is not mine.
Yeah.
And again, it's not like he willingly paid. No. He was legally forced. There's this little difference in there.
Yeah, and I mean, if the mother, the mother either she lied about him being the father, or she just wasn't sure who was the father. So it's basically she committed fraud.
Yeah, it's the culpability of the mother and the state in conjunction.
Yes.
And the state and the mother should pay reparation. And quite frankly, I think the £31,000, I think it's not the entire amount that he paid. I mean, just if we calculate the amounts that he gives per week and put it multiply it by 18 years, I think it's a slightly bigger amount than this. But anyway, at the very least, they should pay this amount. And again, the truth doesn't change. I mean, even if he didn't appeal 10 years ago or 15 years ago, the truth is the same. The kid is not his. Period. Show me the money.
Yep, but I mean that's just the thing. These the family law. That's just the way it works. They don't really care who is the father. They just want someone to pay.
Yeah, indeed.
Indeed, doesn't matter to them.
Indeed. And these kinds of things are even older than feminist influence. I mean, at best, the feminist influence made things even worse, but they used to be in that fashion even before. I mean, yeah, you hit the nail in the head. The truth doesn't even matter to these kinds of people in the bureaucracies.
I mean,
Go ahead.
These sorts of laws may have made sense back in the age when there were no paternity tests, back when you just couldn't tell for certain whether that person was the father. Then you had
fix your internet, Jon. Fix your internet. Fix your internet.
The husband was presumed to be the father.
Yep.
Am I breaking up?
Yeah, badly.
I can hear you fine.
Yeah, you're breaking up badly. Anyway, until Jon fixes his internet, it'll probably take him a few minutes. Let's move to the next one, which is particularly funny. Coming from Jurnalul Național, Romanian news source, but the piece of news is not from Romania anyway. Menopauza a apărut din cauza bărbaților. Ce comportament masculin, spun cercetătorii, că a influențat evoluția femeii. Menopause appeared because of men. What male behavior, the scientists say, it influenced the evolution of women? The emergence of menopause on women can be attributed to the sexual behavior of men. Throughout the existence of our species, a new theory suggests, proposed by a team of experts in evolutionary genetics from the McMaster University in Canada. According to this theory, the preference of men for younger women throughout the evolution of the species made the fertility to become useless for older women. So because of this aspect, menopause has appeared. The research started from an older concern of the scientists, and which essentially asked why menopause only appears to the females of our species and not to the females of other animals. Older theories have proposed the so-called grandma effect. According to that hypothesis, menopause has appeared to women at the age of which, even if they had a child, there was a huge risk that they would die before the child would grow up to the age of taking care of himself. In return, older women could just help raising the children of the younger women, and thus continuing to be useful to the communities in which they were living. Using a computer model, however, the team from the McMaster University drew the conclusion that the sexual selection is the correct evolutionary response. Basically, men, regardless of their age, were picking younger women to mate with, thus making the ovulation of older women to be essentially meaningless. There is evidence throughout our entire history as a species that men have always preferred younger women, says Professor Rama Singh, who conducted the study. He also added that his team studied the human behavior throughout thousands of years and not just current tendencies. As far as the future of our species is concerned, the professor believes that menopause will install more later and later as time goes by. The social system changes. Women start a family much later in life because they focus on education and career in their youth, says Singh. He also believes that in time menopause will install much later in the women's lives as women make healthy children to even higher and higher ages, and thus transmit the genetical characteristics that provide this aspect to their daughters. The theory of Professor Singh is contested, however, by the Professor Maxwell Burton-Chelliu, specialist in evolutionary biology of the Oxford University, who says things are exactly the opposite. The authors of this study say that menopause exists because men had a stronger preference for younger women. I believe things are exactly the opposite. The preferences for the preferences of men for younger women appeared precisely because older women were less fertile. It is far more likely to believe that primitive men would have mated with any woman who could just have children, says Maxwell Burton-Chelliu. From an evolutionary standpoint, older women have had a choice to make. Either have a child, which might not have reached the adult life before their death, or stop reproducing and instead help raising the children of their relatives, said the professor. Okay. Which one is it? Quite frankly, I don't have. I'm with the grandma effect side, but I'm willing to accept any argument. So, which one is it?
Yeah, I mean, the guy from Oxford, his theory makes a lot more sense. Like the first theory that just sort of assumes that men just arbitrarily prefer young women for no reason. Which, why would they do that? If originally older women were no less fertile, then why would you prefer young women?
Yeah,
I don't get it.
Yeah, because evolution is essentially a process of trial and error. So considering this aspect, it makes more sense that primitive men would have preferred anything as long as it could produce offspring, and then through trial and error eventually notice that going to the younger women produces much better result, and essentially through trial and error we got to the point we are now. It just makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to prefer young women from an evolutionary standpoint because they are more fertile and more likely to be healthy and so on. But if that had not been the case originally, then why would men just arbitrarily develop this preference?
I just evil, don't you know that?
Yeah, it's sort of this idea that whenever something happens, then a man must be at fault somehow.
Yeah, I'm also of the opinion that these quote-unquote researchers from the McMaster University of Canada are operating under a certain narrative instead of, arguments based a bit on essentially common sense. I mean, it's not like we discovered the evolutionary theory yesterday, so it should be common sense to work under the generally accepted version of events, which is trial and error. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm too much of an asshole.
Yeah, but like the first explanation that just treats male preference as just something that just comes out of thin air. Somehow, men just arbitrarily, all men have this particular preference for no reason that this theory explains, or at least that's the impression that we get from the article. Maybe the article somehow misrepresents this theory, and they have some sort of better explanation for why this initial preference should be there. That's actually that may be the case. I mean, a lot of science reporting is quite bad these days, so that could be the case. But at least from what we know from this article, this first theory just sounds completely implausible.
Yeah. I was looking in the chat room. says, and Jay says in the chat room, men shunned old women, so the women's bodies rebelled against men. That's biological social justice. Gene brings up an interesting point. He says that stupid menopause is now happening earlier. Is that the case? I don't know. I haven't studied, I have to admit. Is that true?
I don't really know. I mean, I know that puberty sets in earlier, but I don't know if that's also the case for menopause. But of course, the that thing was just about evolutionary trends, and I mean those don't happen over a generation or two, as over thousands of years.
Yes, that's true.
Start to see a difference, but.
Yeah, but on the other hand, we can already notice the installment of puberty slightly earlier by using numbers, the oldest available numbers, as in late 19th century.
That's probably just environmental factors.
Probably, yes.
Nutrition and so on.
Yeah, that's also my. And I don't know if this trend will stay or whether it will influence the evolution of the species on the long run. I'm not really so sure about that. And also if it's better nutrition that brings earlier puberty, actually that would be the case for later menopause as well. And it essentially allows a longer span of fertility if you have better nutrition.
I'm not sure how that works, so I can't really comment on that.
Yeah. Well, we have to study a bit more about that. Going to the next one, that's also from you, yeah.
Yep, it's from the Daily Mail, and it's called "Estate Agent Who Glassed Me Was Only Spared Jail Because She's a Woman." Victim says he is disgusted attacker walked free despite 17 previous convictions for assault. With blood spattered over his injured face, this is Ronnie Lee on his way to hospital minutes after being glassed in an unprovoked attack by a woman. Lucky not to lose an eye, the 24-year-old telesales company director needed 4 stitches following the assault. But despite his injuries, his assailant, estate agent Yasmin Thomas, 21, walked free from court this week with a suspended sentence, despite notching up 18th conviction for assault. Yesterday, Mr. Lee said he was disgusted at the leniency of the sentence, which includes an anger management course. He said, "If it was the other way around and I did that to her, I would be going straight to jail. What happens next time if she does something and it's life-threatening? She could end up killing someone. She's got 18 convictions already. She's a danger to herself and others around her. If someone had the number of convictions she's got, I would think for at least one of them there would be a lesson learned. I don't think the justice system has provided their judgment that will set an example." Mr. Lee was with his friend Richard Evans at the Balso nightclub in Bournemouth in February when they were approached by Thomas and her friends. "Richard and I went out for a drink to celebrate setting up our new business together," Mr. Lee said yesterday. "We had been at Balso for about an hour. We stepped on the dance floor and the lady in question, Yasmin, was there. I didn't know her at all. One of her friends stole Richard's e-cigarettes and threw it on the floor. Yasmin picked it up and tapped me on the shoulder and gave it to me. I was surprised and handed it back to Richard. She then said, 'Aren't you going to say thank you then?' I was confused and didn't say anything. She threw a drink in my face first and then smashed the glass on my left eye socket." Mr. Lee suffered a deep cut close to the eye and other smaller cuts to his face. He said, "It was only 10 minutes from being on the dance floor to being in the ambulance. A nurse pulled glass out of my cheek and eye, and I had 4 stitches in my eyelid. He told me that if it had been a couple of millimeters closer to my eye, I would have been blinded. Since then, I've had some anxiety when I go out and find myself trying to be careful. It's put me on edge." Thomas, an estate agent at Palmer Snell in the Westbourne area of Bournemouth, pleaded guilty to causing actual bodily harm when she appeared at Bournemouth Crown Court. Judge John Harrow described her criminal history as breathtaking, but did not send her to jail, instead handing her a 12-month sentence suspended for 2 years and 80 hours of community service. She was also told to pay Mr. Lee £1,000 in compensation and a £100 victim surcharge. Sentencing her, Judge Harrell said, "You have a breathtaking record of violence. One of the worst I've ever seen from anyone your age. It is not without a lot of hesitation and some reservations, I must confess, that I'm going to suspend that 12-month sentence for 2 years. Any offense at all will be sent back to this court, and he will go straight down those steps to prison for at least 12 months. Tobias Elwood, MP for Bournemouth East, criticized the sentence and said he would be discussing it with the Attorney General to review it.
Well, I have to admit that I'm surprised that a member of the parliament got involved into this. That was really a surprise to me.
Yeah, because after all, you really shouldn't send women to jail because there's better alternatives out there. Yeah, and it's really inhumane to send someone like that to jail.
Truly inhumane, and such a special snowflake. I mean, just 18 convictions of assault and other violent.
At age 21.
At age 21, 18 convictions. I mean, it's not like it's 100. I mean, it's just 18 convictions.
I mean 18. That's less than her age, so you should cut her some slack.
Yeah, it's essentially less than 1 per year, so not really that bad. Now, in all seriousness, why the fuck is this bitch outside of jail? No, seriously.
I mean, if it was a man, he would have been arrested a long time ago.
If it had been a man, he would not have reached up to the point to have 18 convictions. He would have been sent to prison from the second at best. And probably he would have been let go once, but the second time it would have been off you go.
Of course, we don't know what sort of offenses these are. If it's like pretty minor offenses, then you might go free the second or maybe even the third time, but certainly nowhere close to 18.
It says 18th conviction for assault, so essentially something similar had to be the first 17, if this one was also considered assault. Now, again, you're probably right, given that assault now pretty much means anything and everything under the sun, but still, I mean, seriously. Amazing.
Yeah, and I mean, this is clearly a deranged person. I mean, she attacked this man just for nothing, for not saying thank you after she gave him back the stolen e-cigarettes. I mean, what?
Yeah.
It's not like he did. It's not like he did something to piss her off or something. Like then he could at least understand why she would use violence. I don't know, maybe. Like if that was her boyfriend and the boyfriend had cheated on her or something like that, then it wouldn't be okay, but at least you could understand why she would do that. But it's the perfect stranger there.
Yeah. RFE says in the chat room, she doesn't have any children either, so it's not like parentage excuse can be used for the disparity. Well, she has of a JJ, I guess that's enough.
Yeah, she might have children, so...
Yeah, she might have children. I mean, think about it. With such a delightful personality, with 18 assault convictions, so who knows how many assaults in reality, not reported to the police, with 18 assault convictions just up to the age of 21, think of how great the children she would be raising would be absolutely great.
Yeah.
And such
Won't someone think of the potential children?
Yes. Yeah, I wish Mr. Tobias Elwood, the member of the Parliament for Bournemouth East, I wish him good luck to convince the Attorney General to review it. I actually put his name under the watch list and see if he can solve anything. I genuinely doubt, but never say never. Okay, let's go to something even slightly more stupid and a bit more funnier. Dion, you have the floor.
It's from The Independent, another British piece. It's called Former Labour Minister Meg Hillier has demanded pootling lanes for women cyclists. Just as the campaign to sort out Britain's notoriously patchy provisions of cycle lanes gathers pace, one prominent politician is calling for secondary paths to cater to women who prefer to pootle. McKillier, a former Home Office minister and vice chair of the All-Parliamentary Cycling Group, says a slow lane would protect vulnerable riders from the scourge of lycra-clad mad cyclists. Quote, when cycling is planned ideally, you have a fast and a slow lane, so those who want to poodle along can do so, the Labour MP for Hackney told the Daily Telegraph on the day that Emma Pooley sipped towards a silver medal in the Commonwealth Games time trial. Her comments come after new statistics reveal scant sign of progress in bringing equality to our roads. The Department for Transport's annual National Travel Survey...
My roads.
Sorry?
Oh. My roads. More equality on more roads. Anyway,
of course. The Department for Transport's annual National Travel Survey shows that in England, men on average make 21 bike journeys a year, compared to 7 for women. Men also cycle 4 times further, riding 80 miles a year compared to 20. Rachel Eldred, a cycling sociologist and senior lecturer in transport at the University of Westminster, points out that poodlers are a very demographic. I think quite a lot of men would like to poodle as well, while a lot of women like going fast, but the point here is to enable people to go at a range of speeds, she says. But how when there just isn't the space? I'm looking out on Marylebone Road now and it's not a winding historic street. There's plenty of space. Certainly in Westminster where I work, that's not always the case, but it's an issue of what your priorities are. Imagination is key too. The problem has been that we look at who is cycling now and plan for that, Aldred explains. Today it is disproportionately men and young people and those without children, but if we look at places with high levels of cycling like Amsterdam, we see far more older people and women with families. Kaz Nicklin is a champion of normalized cycling, for which clothes or confidence should be no barrier to entry. The founder of the Cycle Chic blog and shop, and author of a new book, The Girl's Bicycle Handbook, says cycling culture can change even while authorities gas about road design. Quote, it's about getting more women on bikes and seeing other women cycling in their own clothes, or with their kids, she says. Training is important to help overcome the fear of other cars, to realize that it's not quite as scary as you might think. She adds, I will always feel the cycling community feels welcoming, and if there's a speedy cyclist who wants to get past, that's fine as long as you don't mind me doing my thing. We don't want an us and them culture.
You sure?
Yeah, that's just, those first world feminist problems. It's
the very word brutal sounds like either a euphemism for sex or a euphemism for pussy or a euphemism for small shit. There's quite a lot of things that the word brutal makes you think when you hear it. But going back to the more serious stuff, first of all, this is where is it? If you look in places like Amsterdam, you see far more old people and women and families on the road. No, that's just not true. Probably there are slightly more than in the UK, but to say that it is generalized, no, quite frankly, it's not. I've spent quite a bunch of time in Amsterdam, and in very much overwhelming majority of the time, I had the great pleasure of being hit by young male bicycles. With bicycles ridden by young males. Very rarely there were old people, but usually also old men. But entire families going on cycling in the middle of the town in the rush hours? No. That's just not gonna happen. It's just not happening. And probably, maybe it will happen in the future. I have no idea, but definitely today is not happening. Also, what's this business of bringing equality on more roads? What?
Yeah, it's just more of this egalitarian bullshit. This idea that everything needs to be equal. That we need an equal number of people in in parliament, an equal number of people in the construction union, an equal number of men and women. I don't know, doing supermarket shopping or I don't know, playing chess. It doesn't matter what the activity is. There's always a problem here, and you always need some more social engineering to take care of it.
Yeah, I think the state should invest in an equality program to encourage more men to buy tampons. I mean,
yeah, definitely. Yeah,
it's structural sexism that most of the tampons are bought by women.
Yeah, especially because tampons are so highly taxed. So that really is the solution to the tampon tax. You just force men to also buy tampons, then everything is equal.
Yeah. For those who didn't, I mean, seriously, we were joking about the tampons thing, but in all seriousness, why does it have to be? And I'll probably die before understanding why does it have to be an equal number of men and women cycling on the streets? I mean, if women don't want to cycle on the streets, then they don't cycle. Period. It's their business. It shouldn't be my business or the state's business or the Labour Party business or whomever else other than the women themselves who choose not to cycle or to poodle on the... I mean, seriously?
Yeah, I mean, it's this sort of old egalitarian assumption that all people are essentially equal. So if there's an inequality in outcome somehow, that must mean that some group is discriminated against. And we must do something about it. So women don't. It's not that women don't cycle because they don't like to cycle. It's because the roads are sexist or something.
Yeah, the roads. Jesus Christ.
Also,
okay,
I don't really understand why we need a separate lane. Like at least the way it works in Germany. If you're somewhat slower, you just stay on the right side of the cycling lane, and then if you want to go past someone, you go to the left side and you just cycle past them. I don't understand what the problem is.
Highways. Yeah, just like on the highways.
You don't need a separate lane for that.
Nah,
I mean,
and
you just need
the lane.
Yeah, I mean, you just need the lane to be big enough so that you can actually pass someone by. That's basically all you need.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I mean, I have an even harder problem of empathizing with the whole issue because, quite frankly, I don't understand the whole need altogether of having cycling lines on the streets and, no, just take the bus, get a car. If you want to cycle, go on the countryside. I don't know. I just can't empathize with the whole thing. I just can't. Maybe I'm too anachronic on this. It seems very hipsteresque to me. I mean, I don't know how to put it.
Why? I don't understand that. What's wrong with cycling? I don't think it's something inherently wrong. I just think spending the taxpayers' money on accommodating cyclists, even to the detriment of real transportation that gets things done in a city, is a misguided priority. That's all. I don't think there's something inherently wrong with it. I mean, it's other people's business. I don't cycle. That doesn't mean that everyone else has to do what I do. Yeah, I guess that's the problem with when you have a public road. You just have to have sort of a central agency deciding how much to allocate towards cycling. And I mean, the absurd thing is that even this article they are complaining about these. The city planners adjusting their spending on cycling lanes based on the people who actually use those cycling lanes, and that's somewhat sexist.
Yeah.
But I mean,
anyway, with your permission, I'm gonna skip the one from Daily Mail for a second, because I don't know if you'll have the time to introduce it, and go straight to the last one from Care2, because, oh my god, Care2. Why did I put this link? Care2.com. Gender equality on the rise. We actually reported somehow on this piece 2 weeks ago. France passes a super progressive laws. While we're still a long way from developing a world where males and females coincide as equals, one country is coming a lot closer to making that fantasy a reality. I appreciate the honesty about the use of the word fantasy. Recently, France adopted the new gender equality legislation that is some of the most progressive in the world. Though the law covers a lot of topics, the most buzzed about news is its impact on pro-choice individuals. In the first 12 weeks of pregnancy, women can now have an abortion without having to give any official reason or explanation. Additionally, institutions are no longer allowed to guide women away from abortions by way of trickery or misinformation campaigns. That's a bit dishonest reporting right there. But anyway, previously, since 1975, French women have only been able to obtain an abortion if they could demonstrate to a medical professional that being pregnant puts them in a situation of distress. By changing this requirement, women no longer have to justify their decision to officials, instead leaving it a personal matter for them to determine privately. Najat Vallaud-Belkacem, our old friend, the Minister for Women's Rights, said, quote, "Abortion is a right in itself and not something that is subject to conditions." Really? I thought it's a consumer product. Anyway, it's a big victory for reproductive rights, particularly considering that much of the world, including industrialized nations, is backpedaling by placing restrictions on access to abortions. Is that really true? In stark contrast to these other nations, France also recently passed legislation requiring the government to financially cover all legal abortions and to provide teenagers with free contraception to help prevent unwanted pregnancies. Yay, progress! Another portion of the legislation focuses on providing greater equality to men as well. Really? The law not only permits but urges men to take paternity leave from work after the birth of a child for as long as mothers do. Compulsion is now equality. Anyway, the goal of this provision is twofold. First, it provides men with equitable time for parenting the newborns and lends credence to the importance of a father plays in a young child's life. Okay. Second, it helps to stop business from considering women lesser assets to a workplace, since they might get pregnant and take a leave of absence from the job. With men able to leave work for as long as women, there's less reason for employers to discriminate against potential female hires. Wrong. Finally, though less publicized than the aforementioned stipulations, the legislation also establishes programs to help women who are victims of domestic abuse and or living in poverty. Since women traditionally have less economic independence in society, France hopes to empower women to rise above the undesirable living situations they're trapped in. Okay, the amount of misleading reporting in this article is too damn high. Okay, first of all, institutions are not allowed to drive women away from abortions by way of trickery or misinformation campaigns. That's actually quite a lie. There was never a case, at least not since 1975 in France, where institutions were allowed to guide women away from abortions by way of trickery or misinformation campaigns. Because, you know, surprisingly for some of the progressives, for some of the progressive crowd, France actually has a law that, considers fraud to be a felony. So, no. It was never a legally allowed thing to do for any institution, be it privately funded or state funded. However, it used to be allowed for, I don't know, let's say NGOs to go to abortion facilities and, propose to some of the poor families and more poor women, say, look, don't have an abortion now and we'll pay for, I don't know, the early schooling of your child, or we'll help you to get a job, or things of that nature. That used to be allowed, which is no longer allowed now. But I don't think that's a means of a way of trickery or misinformation. It's essentially a way of persuading the individual woman to no longer have an abortion. And quite frankly, I don't find anything wrong with that. I mean, it's a trade-off. She gets the option to say no.
I think that's a good thing.
And
to be honest,
quite frankly, I also think it's a good thing. But at the very least, if she doesn't want to take that trade-off, she has the whole freedom to say, no, fuck your trade-off, I'm going to have an abortion anyway. And I don't think that's a problem. Second of all, women no longer have to justify their decision to officials. Well, again, they didn't have to justify it anyway. I mean, it's more like a formal change than actually a substantive change. Not even in 75 wasn't it strictly applied. But anyway, also this particularly, including industrialized nations, they're backpedaling on placing restrictions on access to abortions. Well, in Europe, except for countries that traditionally restrict abortion, which is at Malta, Ireland, and Poland. Yeah, right? These three are usually the main offenders in this area. All the others just don't seem to me as wanting to restrict abortion. I mean, seriously wanting. Not that, in care2.com terms, a politician which has a 0.5% in the last election said that we should illegalize abortion. Well, that doesn't really count as evidence of a nation wanting to place restriction on abortion. It just doesn't count as evidence. But real evidence, a legislative proposal that got 30% in the parliament, that would count as an evidence. I was unable to find such evidence that any nation beside those three that have traditionally restricted this procedure of doing that.
I guess that maybe they're looking at the United States, where there's in recent years there's been a number of sort of laws that somewhat restrict abortion. Mm-hmm. So I guess in the US that's sort of that trend, but for the abortion is still legal in the United States. There's just a few restrictions here and there.
Yeah, but then again, even there, it's not like the whole nation, as they put it, tried to do that. There were some legislatures in some states who attempted some minor restrictions, which is, granted, that counts as evidence, but it counts as evidence that, in 4 states of the 50 United States, there were some attempts too. Okay, that's fair enough, but it doesn't count as evidence for the whole nation, again. Anyway, this one is actually funny. It provides greater equality to men as well. It urges men to take paternity leave, or no, they won't.
Actually,
go ahead.
Actually, I think that sentence is correct. It does provide greater equality, but it's it's all a downward adjustment. Basically, men are now also get paternity leave, which is a bad thing, and now they also will be paid lower wages, just like women already are. So in that sense, it's going to be more equal, but everyone is going to be worse off because of it.
Equally poor. Yeah, it's usually how socialism works. They finally realize that they can't make everyone equally decent, so they make everyone equally poor. Standard operating procedure. We've been seeing that happening for so long, and we never learned the lesson. But I genuinely disagree with this sentence. With men able to leave work for as long as women, there's less reason for employers to discriminate against potential female hires. No. This ability has been in place in Sweden since 97, 95, something like that, almost 20 years now. And essentially, little to nothing has changed. And there was an article on foreign policy, I think, written by a feminist, who explained that no matter what you do, the numbers will stay almost the same. With this kind of law, maybe you'll convince maybe 2% of the fathers to take advantage of it. But the crux of the matter will remain essentially unchanged. Guess what? Women really do want more than men to take parental leave. It's just the way it is. We may not like it, but that doesn't change the fact, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, I don't really think that there's any reason to dislike it. It just makes sense just from the biological facts that women are able to breastfeed and men are not. And yes. Baby formulas and so on are getting better all the time, but it's still not as good as actual breast milk.
And also this, Even if consider, let's say starting from tomorrow, 50% of fathers in France new fathers in France will decide to take parental leave, just to make the whole society, more equal and whatnot. Let's assume that for a second. Yeah, but that still doesn't change the biological fact that women are going to be the ones actually doing the birth, which would still imply a slightly longer vacation for the woman than for the man. It's just a biological fact. There's no way to work around it, no matter how much.
This article doesn't say that that this law would stop all discrimination.
Oh yeah, it will provide less reason.
That it was with less reason. So I think that's correct.
That's fair.
But it's still not a good thing, because it doesn't mean that women will be paid more. It just means that men will also be paid less. So in this sense, it's going to be more equal, but it's in the wrong direction.
I'm not even sure that men will be paid less. Again, I'm using the Swedish example. I mean, they've been having exactly this kind of law since 97 or 95, one of the two. And virtually nothing has changed in that whole time. And even the Swedish law is even more compulsory than, even more draconian than the one in France. And it still doesn't change anything. And again, I'm quoting from a feminist here. Think again, working woman from foreign policy. That's the name of the article. Google it, you'll find it. And I think it was on the 3rd or 4th page talking about the paternity leave in Sweden. So really, and it's written by a feminist, so there's no way you can say, oh, but that's misleading. No. They admit it themselves. It's just not going to work. Okay, 10:04. Sorry, not enough time for the last link. Let's go straight to the music break, listening to a heavy metal band from Bucharest, self-titled album from 2002, Trupă Posedat, or Possessed.
Veio
Okay, we're back. We've listened to Tupa, Possedato or Possessed from the 2002 album. Great band, I recommend. By the way, we will open the call-in lines right now. If I can just find out the... Oh yes, the call-in number is 001-214-272-0408. Did I get that right, James?
Yes, that's correct. Folks, it is first come, first serve. If you don't get an answer, it's probably because somebody's already on.
Okay. And for the second part, we'll be continuing essentially our funny discussion that we had a month and something ago when we did Feminist Pseudoscience Part 1. I just found 2 new things. Ion, did you get the chance to look at them a little bit?
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of babbling to me.
I'll take the first one, you'll take the second one. Obviously, I'm not going to read the entire first one because it's just too long. But I'm going to read a portion of it because it's just too funny. So, until someone calls in, and if someone calls in, let's start from journal.frontierzin.org. Neurofeminism and Feminist Neurosciences, a critical review of contemporary brain research. Listen carefully, maybe you can make sense out of it. I couldn't. I read this thing 3 times and still can't understand anything. To date, feminist approaches to neurosciences have evaluated the debates surrounding practices of knowledge production within and research results of contemporary brain research. Consequently, neurofeminist scholars have critically examined gendered impacts of neuroscientific research. Feminist neuroscientists also develop research approaches for a more gender-appropriate neuroscientific research on several levels. Based on neurofeminist critique, feminist neuroscientists aim to enrich neuroscientific work by offering methodological suggestions for a more differentiated setup of categories and experimental designs for reflective result presentations and interpretations, as well as for the analysis of result validity. Reframing neuroepistemologies by including plasticity concepts works to uncover social influences on the gendered development of the brain and of behavior. More recently, critical work on contemporary neurocultures has highlighted the entanglements of neuroscientific research within society and the implications of neurofacts for gendered cultural symbolisms, Jesus Christ, social practices and power relations. Not least, neurofeminism critically analyzes the portrayal of neuro-knowledge in popular media. This article presents an overview on neurofeminist debates and on current approaches of feminist neurosciences. The authors conclude their review by calling for a more gender-appropriate research approach that takes into account both its situatedness and reflections of the neuroscientific agenda, but also questions neurofeminist discourse in regards to uses and misuses of its concepts. So let's see how this review works of this outstanding work and this outstanding new perspective that nobody has ever heard of. Neurosexism, Neurofeminism, and Feminist Neurosciences. A historical narrative. Seriously, stop laughing. By the middle of the 1980s and starting with Fausto Sterling, 1992, book of Myth of Gender, and at the latest feminist science studies have critically examined the knowledge production in the neurosciences and its impacts in gendered significations, gender roles, and social gender relations. Scholars of the humanities, of the social and cultural studies, and from neuroscience itself have critically examined theoretical, methodological, and methodical neuroscientific approaches. Scholars of feminist science studies have elaborated a long-standing critique of neuroscientific empirical research and underlying theoretical concepts, claiming that they present a seemingly undisturbed history of science and its actors from a positivist perspective of enlightenment. In this paper, we present an overview of recent approaches to critically reflect these problematic narratives in different ways. We will present a her story rather than a history when referencing the wide scope of research from colleagues who have evaluated the findings, methodologies, and processes of knowledge production in the neurosciences that are all situated within social contexts. These studies have outlined the gendered constructions within research as well as the impacts of references to supposed neuroscientific facts of the sexed brain on various levels. Critical gender, feminist, and queer scholars have developed a term for these uncritical biases in research and public perception and for their social impacts on the individual, structural, and symbolic level. Neurosexism. Their outstanding scholarly work has explored such biases in neuroscientific research for more than 3 decades now. As a counterpoint to neurosexism and following, we use the term neurofeminism to encompass this work that evaluates practices of knowledge production within neuroscience. Neurofeminism critically validates gendered assumptions of contemporary brain research and examines the impacts of references to neuroscientific research on social gendered order and cultural significations. In consequence, neurofeminism circumscribes the analytical perspective for re-evaluating methodological constraints and knowledge productions within the neurosciences. Based on a biocultural perspective, neurofeminism additionally highlights the inseparable entanglements between the development of biological matter and social influences. Okay, I can't do this anymore.
Thank you. Oh my fucking god. Oh my fucking god, are you kidding me? What the fuck? What the fuck was that?
And this is just the intro. You want to hear the continuation?
No, I don't want to hear anything else.
So, I think I understand about half of that. And
okay, you're better than me, so I'm listening. I'm all ears.
What I do understand sounds rather trivial, and it's just that they've just dressed it up into incomprehensible language to make banal statements sound very scientific. Like
but they're saying neuroscience sexist because, and here's neuroscience to prove it.
Well, I guess in the beginning that's just sort of I guess what they're trying to drive at is that traditionally neuroscience has been biased as it sort of assumes a male perspective and doesn't consider the female perspective adequately, and that's what they want to contribute there. And they want to, reframing neuroepistemologies by including plasticity concepts works to uncover social influences, blah, blah, blah. Basically means that they have sort of theories of how the brain has plasticity, that is, that it changes over the course of a person's life based on the environment, and they want to use these theories to, I guess, explain certain cultural developments, and want to turn to the thing about neurofacts. I think they want to research how certain facts or myths about the brain influences culture, like the belief that, I don't know, women are better at multitasking or something like that, or men have a larger brain. I guess that's the sort of thing that they talk about with neurofacts. So it's a lot of rather basic stuff that they've just dressed up in incomprehensible language.
Yeah, but men have a larger brain. That's kind of a fact that it's not up to debate. I mean, the sun goes out in the morning. It's not up to debate. It's just the way it is. And we can debate the multitasking part, okay, but...
Yeah, but they can critically examine how this fact, plays into culture and so on, and how this is interpreted, and So, I guess.
This is primitivism. I mean, this fact plays like not at all in the culture today. I mean, 100 years ago, maybe at the beginning of the studying of the human brain, but now, not really.
There are actually theories in intelligence research. We know that brain size is positively correlated with IQ. And there's in this within sort of the scientific community of intelligence researchers, there's a group of them who believe that men have a slightly higher mean IQ by about 3.5% or something, or 3.5 IQ points, and this sort of figure would be consistent with the average difference of the brain size between men and women. So that would be an explanation for that disparity. But that's all speculative and controversial.
Yeah, controversial, yes. Speculative, definitely, because then comes Einstein, who had a brain smaller than mine and an IQ and an intelligence 100 times bigger than mine. So. I mean, yeah, but then again, James, were you able to understand anything from this? Because I saw you reacted very...
Yeah, dude, I wanted to tell you to stop, like, within the first 10 sentences. I got everything I needed to know just from that. I mean, this fucking reads like the random Tumblr blogs. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the postmodern generator.
Yes, actually.
That's exactly what the fuck this is.
Yes. At first, when I saw I'll tell you the truth. At first, when I saw the link, I asked the person who gave me the link, "Are you sure it's for real?" Because it definitely looks like a copy-paste from a postmodernist generator. I genuinely believed that it was generated with a postmodernist generator and not a real thing. And then I saw the emblem of Uppsala University, and okay, then probably it's for real, or at least they think they're for real.
No, I mean what they're saying is sort of generally coherent. They just express it in extremely convoluted terms, and a lot of it is of course wrong. But it is coherent stuff, I think, from what I can understand.
Jesus Christ. Well, I guess if James is hurt in his ears, I won't continue to read from it.
Oh, please don't. I'm not usually the type to beg, but fuck, dude.
Yeah, but the thing is, they have to use this complicated language so that they sound important. Because if you just put their stuff into plain language, then it's not going to look very impressive.
No, it wouldn't.
It would essentially look like a Tumblr thing.
Hey, we got a caller.
Yeah,
Yay.
bring him.
Hey, caller,
Hi,
turn
Iron
on
John.
your radio.
Probably.
Hey, you're in
Yeah.
luck today, guys. It's Iron John calling, not prank caller.
Imagine that.
Or maybe it's a prank caller who sounds like Iron John and just really pranking us.
Yep. That's
Oh,
it right there.
yeah. Well, you're out of luck on that case as well. To spare James any more further punishment with this horrible document, I wanted to bring up something a little bit different. It's something you guys touched on earlier in the program, which hopefully will be a little bit more tolerable. And that was the case of the man from the United Kingdom who couldn't get the money back for all the child support he paid. And an interesting point came up that I'd like to share with the audience and, with the hosts as well.
Go ahead.
I couldn't help but wonder if the reason the state did not want to go after the fraudulent mother, she had to have known this wasn't his child. I mean, she eventually did discover it was not his child, but as I understand it, the United Kingdom, just like the United States and other nations, these child support enforcement agencies, don't they take a portion of these payments that the men make and keep them for themselves?
Yes, but in the UK, it's not even by far the money-making scheme that it is in the US. I mean, yeah, essentially all the employees in there are paid using governmental funds, but they don't get more money if they gather more child support. If that's what they don't get huge bonuses. It's not the money-making scheme that is in the US.
I couldn't help but wonder, though, is it perhaps the reason the state doesn't want to seek out this reimbursement is because they would have to make a reimbursement as well?
No, I don't think so. I think, but I mean, again, in the UK, they don't have this huge scheme like it is in the US. I think it's Title 4D or something like that. So yeah, in the US, they have the employers of the child support enforcement agencies have an incentive to gather as much money as possible and reimburse as little as possible. In the UK, not really. The employees themselves don't have this incentive. However, the chiefs of these agencies have an incentive not to reimburse, because they would create a legal precedent, which can result in more and more complaints, and then they would get bad ratings, and then they would be all in trouble.
Well, that would certainly make sense. Another reason that they may not have wanted to reverse this position is that because maybe the spotlight would suddenly be on them. There could be men in prison. They could be held liable for similar circumstances. I could create a precedent, which could screw up the whole machinery.
Yeah. Basically, if they now allow this man to get his money back, that will just open Pandora's box, and there's going to be lots and lots and lots of other cases like that where men try to get their money back.
Yeah, I would tend to think that would open the floodgates. It would be open season on them.
Yeah, and again, the sad part is that we can't know for sure, for the reason that I mentioned during the news section. His case is 20 years old, so definitely falls into the period where the family court proceedings were entirely secret. So we can't even know for sure, and there's no way to find out for sure, even whether he appealed to the decision before or not. We just can't know, because the whole files are sealed, and all the people involved are under a gag order not to speak publicly about it.
Yeah. That might be something else that they don't want opened up, and
because if some judge fucked it up in the 80s or early 90s, early 90s actually, that whole thing could come up now, and maybe that judge is no longer a judge, is a politician, things of that nature, and essentially open up a huge can of worms.
Yeah, the famous American saying of you dig up the past, all you get is dirty.
Yeah, it applies to every single bureaucracy, in my opinion.
I had a comment on the pink car lanes, I think it was, that I heard about earlier.
No, they're not pink. That would be sexist.
Oh, of course.
Because it would be assuming that women like pink and so on. That you can't do that.
You can't have that.
Of course.
That's neurosexism.
Shame on me for yes, of course. Well, that is an element I hadn't considered, and of course they couldn't be blue because that might be an indication that the patriarchy has left a mark on the highway. But in the United States, we have a history with racial segregation, which thankfully was abolished, particularly when it came to public transportation. The busings. The buses in certain parts of the countries were segregated by race. Schools were segregated by race, and in fact, entire bus companies were made to separate people of different races, and it's just amazing to me that those who would be in favor of something like this do not really get the implications of how this is. This can hardly be considered a step towards equality.
Yeah, it's essentially Jim Crow on sex. Yeah, it's essentially Jim Crow on sex.
I don't really think that's the case. I mean, they're not making exclusive lanes for women. They're making lanes for slow cyclists.
Well, that's not how the labor minister framed it. She framed it as for women, essentially. I mean, she said she implied that women tend to be the slower cyclists, which I guess is true. I don't know, but she framed it as a thing to be put there to pander to women, essentially. So, yeah, not really Jim Crow-like, but in practice, essentially the same thing, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we have to understand a certain thing. Now, this is not the case in the UK, but it is the case in Belgium, for instance, which is the heart of this new USSR, EU-SSR that we're all into. This kinds of segregation in schools, in particular, is practiced in Belgium between Wallons and what's the English name? Flanders, I think, something like that. I really don't know the term in English.
Yeah, I think it's Flanders.
Yeah, so essentially there are schools, and I know for a fact that they exist, for instance, in Liège. You know, in the school on the ground floor, there's the Wallon students being, and on the first floor is the Flanders students. It's essentially total segregation, and they use entirely different language, entirely different facilities, you know, and there is even restrooms or toilets. You know, these are the toilets for Flanders. As if
really?
Yeah, that's true. In Liège, that's for sure. Also in Antwerp, I don't know if it's the case in Brussels, maybe not, but definitely in the smaller cities of Belgium, this is the case. And you know, the one with the restrooms was particularly funny to me. I mean, I was saying, do Flanders pee differently than the Wallons? I mean, okay, I can understand different classes because they use different languages, maybe, okay, even though, in my opinion, they should probably don't have that. But anyway, but different restrooms? I mean, come on, do they pee differently?
Yeah.
No.
Are we talking here about public schools, or is that private schools?
Public schools.
Public schools.
Yes. Yes, actually, private schools tend to be either schools for Wallons or schools for Flanders. You know, they don't have this kind of mixing as a rule. I don't know. Maybe in Brussels they do. I haven't studied the phenomenon closely in the capital, but the public schools, however, are obliged, you know, by this overreaching equality to include everyone. So they essentially include everyone by segregating them, which is probably the worst alternative.
Yeah.
Well,
so
that was going to be my... Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lucian.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead. Essentially
that was my follow-up question is, in Europe, do you have any other practices presently or historically that will be similar to what we had in the United States? I mean, this is the voice of Europe, not the voice of America. And not being that familiar with European history, that was something I was wanting to know about. Are there any parallels in Europe that could be drawn to what we went through in the past 50 years or so?
Along the racial lines, other than the Third Reich, I really can't remember something relevant of that comparable with what happened in the US. However, along ethnic lines, this is the one in Belgium is particularly telling. There are similar practices in southern Italy, but there, I mean, unlike Belgium, where this practice is constantly contested, in southern Italy is not really contested because, you know, the locals view it as a practical necessity. I don't know if you guys know, but Italy, the Italian language that they speak in Rome and in the on TV is not exactly the same language that is spoken throughout the country. There are portions of Italy who they say they speak a dialect of Italian, but essentially you have to speak German in order to understand it, or you have to speak Albanian in order to understand it. And I mean it. It's not a joke. So, you know, in those portions, they also use these kinds of segregation along ethnic lines, but particularly in the institutions of education. But in transportation, I don't know. I can think of no. Actually, we didn't. No, we don't. We don't have. India has segregation based on sex on the subways, but here in Europe and Canada, I think was considering it. Toronto, I think they were considering something like that. I don't know if they ever implemented it. Probably not.
Well, we do have sex segregation in things like gyms and sometimes in swimming pools. They have maybe sort of certain hours where only women are allowed to swim or only women are allowed to go to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite common.
Yeah.
Well, not continental Europe specifically, but in the United Kingdom, I had heard a few years ago about a business that had offered cab service to women only. I thought that, maybe that was something similar and just as misandric, in my opinion.
Well, yes, but then again, these are not sanctioned by the state. Unlike, in the US, most of these were in some way, shape, or form mandated by the state, which is not the case. Even with those gyms, the businesses themselves decide to do it, and some of them hit the crude reality and find out that it doesn't work, so they renounce it. Some of them find out that it works for them, so they keep it. But it's not mandated by the state.
Yeah,
and
I don't.
Outside of the UK, I don't think it's even illegal to have it. In the UK, I know for sure it's illegal to have it, even though nobody is bothering to challenge it in the court. But other than the UK, I don't think it's even illegal to have that.
I must have misunderstood then. I thought that, here in the United States, cab companies are licensed by the government. That may not actually be the case in the UK, so it's possible I made an error there.
Oh, the cabs are usually licensed by the local city hall, in the city where those cabs are registered. That's usually the case, not the federal or the national government. It's the local cities do the business.
I think it's also the case in the US.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I highly doubt that Washington licenses all the cabs in the US. That would be crazy. It's quite a lot of cabs.
Yeah, it probably would be.
There's quite a lot of cabs there.
Yeah. Well, just something to think about. I tend to think that instead of these bicycles or whatever they are, these lanes, it sounds like some sort of attempt to win favor with women for some reason by treating them in a special manner. They probably want something in return.
If that's the case, it would be interesting to find out what they want in return.
Yeah. Well, nothing is free in life.
That's
what who wants in return? Not quite following.
Yeah. I really don't know. Some kind of support for something else. Cooperation, maybe to ignore something else.
I'm not quite following you. Who wants something in return?
The state.
Okay.
Yeah. Could be votes. That could be something.
Yeah, but that could blow up in the state's face because as much as we can do it such a collectivist calculus on paper, that you usually have a proverb: the mathematics you do at home doesn't compute with the mathematics that happens in the real market.
Does this require any kind of public approval, or is it they're just going to go ahead and do it anyway?
Yes, it does. It does.
Yeah, that may be why.
It does require first and foremost the approval of every single local council. It's not like Westminster can just pass a law and all the cities have to abide. Well, not really, because the roads are usually administered by the cities. So,
yeah.
And I can't really imagine that this would actually pass. I don't think that's at all likely.
Okay. Apparently we have another person on the line, and we can't have two on the same time, right?
I'm trying to keep it to one caller in at a time. A couple people tried to call, we missed them.
Okay, I see.
Okay.
Well, well, thanks a lot for calling, John. If nobody else's calls in, I have another link that I'll have you on read it because it's funny. And if someone else calls in, maybe they have their say as well. Thanks a lot for calling in, John. Sorry, we're pressed on time. We're pressed on time a little bit.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Okay. Let's take a short music break and then we'll be back with another link or maybe with another caller. Look, we're being progressive here, so we'll be listening to some progressive metal, progressive heavy metal from France. Name of the band Aging Beauty, album L'Ultima Hora, The Last Hour 2004, so Aging Beauty, Steps. All right, we're back. We've listened to Aging Beauty Steps, great progressive heavy metal band from France. We're in the closing thoughts stage of the show. We are on the line with RFE from the chat room. Welcome to the Voice of Europe, RFE.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me good?
Yes, we can hear you great.
Oh, that's great. I was just wondering about, Sweden's quite bizarre, isn't it, as a culture? For instance, calling, I think it was children, wasn't it, hen or something? That was a while ago. And I was just wondering, bearing that in mind, is it really fair to say that their culture is more problematic than, say, for instance, America? Because, like, for instance, Sweden has, I think, a national debt something like 40%, and in America it's a lot higher, and there's a lot of problems in America, for instance.
What do they have? What do they have?
Well, for instance, there's 50,000 people in prison, mainly men, for failure to pay child support in America. And I'm just thinking, because the biggest contention in the MRM is the economic structure of because we can see the state is the problem, but at the same time there's like a question of what do we do with the state. So my question is there anything we can learn from Sweden, whilst at the same time trying to make it better, for instance, by eliminating some of the misinformation in the media?
If there's anything that can be done better in Sweden, how much time do we have? Well, not really now.
I think his question was if there's anything we can learn from Sweden, right?
Well, yes. Yeah, well, I guess if I understand his question correctly and corroborating with what he said in the chat room earlier in the show, he essentially wants to say that, well, Sweden is imprisoning far fewer people per capita than the United States, which is true, yes. But on the other hand, I don't think we should learn from Sweden the model that they're using on their prison system. I'm going to recommend the documentary we made, and it's available on YouTube, called The Socialist Utopia, about Sweden, and it's also available in chapters, and you can go straight to law enforcement. Daniel Hammenberg, yes. And essentially their prisons looks more like hotels, and you have people who go on forums. There are forums about prisons in Sweden, and people asking, have you been to this one? This one also has great TVs, and this one has a better internet subscription. There's not a joke. That's actually true. And I'm not sure that anyone should try to learn from Sweden and apply the same thing. No. Just no. Please don't.
But didn't they do reforms, I think, in the 90s or something, like economic reforms, and that improved their economy?
Sweden actually has a great potential of economic development if they would just stop wasting a fuck ton of money on two completely useless programs. I mean, just last week we discussed, I don't know if you've listened to our previous episode last Friday, they essentially don't have enough defense to defend the population from a forest fire, because they spent a fuck ton of money on gender power paradigm programs for firefighters, which essentially helps no one when it comes to an actual fire.
Another thing that I was thinking of is, what do you think of, say, like a guaranteed income? I mean, is there a creative solution that can solve both demands? Because in the MLM, there's a kind of split between like the left and the right. Is there any way, for instance, because Charles Murray, for instance, he proposed a system whereby I have
no idea who Charles Murray is.
He was I think he was a paleo-libertarian sociologist, and he proposed $10,000. $2,000 of that went to a person's pension, and another 2,000, I can't remember. But anyway, that's right, health, that's right, healthcare. And so the idea is to reduce the state bureaucracy and at the same time still satisfy the demands for those on the left who wanted a bigger government. Is that something that could satisfy the left and the right in the men's rights movement, do you think?
No.
You see
the question.
The thing about this idea of replacing all welfare and all this bureaucracy and so on with the some sort of universal basic income is, theoretically, if it could be implemented, it would be, I think, an improvement over the current system. But I think it's very unlikely that it will be implemented like that. most likely what you're going to see if you do advocate for universal basic income and that starts to pick up steam, what will most likely happen is that you will get the universal basic income and still retain all the old bureaucracy and all the old welfare payments that will just be reduced, and the universal basic income will be lower than actually is necessary. So
there is a precedent for that.
The worst of both worlds.
I just remember there is a precedent for that. Milton Friedman proposed a negative income tax. And, you know, he supported it all the way up to testifying in the Congress for it. And, you know, this thing is absolutely great. And then he finally realized that, yes, the Congress agreed with him that it's absolutely great. But then they were going to implement it on top of the existing bureaucracy. Yes. And then he came back and said, no, absolutely not. No, you're either cutting everything else and keep this, or just don't implement this at all. And eventually the negative income tax failed precisely for this reason. So there is a precedent for that, and that's why I agree with Jon on this. On the other hand, Sweden is paying 10 times more than the amounts you mentioned on these things, and they still have a poorer healthcare system than, I don't know, Germany, which spends half, for instance. So, As long as it's bureaucracy, it's going to be inefficient. Now, I'm sorry, I really like this discussion, but we're very, very close towards the end of the show, so I'm going to have... please call back again another time.
Will do. Thanks so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for calling.
Bye.
Okay, so we didn't get a chance to get to the body embodiment group, so we're just gonna put it in the chat room for everyone to read it after the show if they want more pseudoscientific crazy. For the record,
say no to that.
Yes. For the record, both of these, both the neurofeminist claptrap, whatever, and this body embodiment group, they're both coming from the same nice little place called the Uppsala University, or Uppsala Universitetet in Sweden. A place which we know from Joachim, when Daddy Sverige, when he came to our show, he told us that, you know, it's the same university who supported eugenics, various racist theories, and things of that nature. So essentially, they still wonder why we call them femofascists? Amazing. And the worst part in all this is that Uppsala University works on public funds. So here for RFE, if you're still listening to us, here's a better solution for Sweden. Just defund Uppsala University and you already have enough money to defend yourself from fires. Amazing. All right then. Closing thoughts beyond on what RFE said or what everything has been said.
Just on the topic of Sweden and the US, I think there's a lot of things that are really fucked up in the US. Also, a number of good things going on there. It's difficult to sort of compare the US to Sweden because two countries are so very different, and sort of good and bad things about both countries. And but if we want to find a country to learn from, I don't think we should start with Sweden. There's other European countries that are doing better economically and don't have these feminist policies that are all that crazy. I mean, all countries in Europe are feminist to some point, but none of them is as bad as Sweden in that regard.
Yeah, if I were to pick two European nations from which we should start learning, would probably be Deutschland and Switzerland. Probably better examples than Sweden
or
and
the
France.
Netherlands.
Or the Netherlands, Well, the Netherlands, in terms of taxation, I really am a fan of the Netherlands.
Actually,
in context, of course. In context.
Actually, my favorite European country is Liechtenstein. That is, I think, a country that people could learn from a lot.
Yeah, true enough, but then again, Liechtenstein has this problem, it has fewer inhabitants than the street I'm living in, so it's kind of hard to expand a model that is admittedly working fantastic, but again, it's made to work for 32,000 people instead of, I don't know, I mean, to apply the model of Liechtenstein to Germany, for instance, I'm not sure it would work.
Yeah, but then I think the problem is that Germany is just too big, and it should be multiple countries. But that's a different discussion.
Yeah, true story. It's always a problem when you get to a country that's too big. I mean, it's the same issue with the United States. I mean, if you ask me, it should be at least 3 countries. But anyway, but then again, I actually come up with an answer. He said, well, there's anything that we could learn from Sweden. That's what RFE asked. And I guess that would be the thing that, they don't really accept circumcision pretty much at all. So that would be quite an issue where the Scandinavians are really, really leading the discussion these days, particularly Sweden, actually. So yeah, maybe that
is a good point.
Yeah, but again, even on that, I would rather start learning from Norway instead of Sweden, please. Just saying. And with that being said, does Dean have tomorrow a show, James?
Oh yeah, they've got a show tomorrow.
Oh, okay, I guess it's called Tales from the Infrared, starting on noon U.S. Central Time. That's 7 p.m. Central European Time, Germany time. And we'll be back next Friday, August 29th. And with that being said, take care, everyone. Take the red pill.
This has been a production of A Voice for Man. Lucian Wilson and his guests, thank you for listening to the Voice of Europe. A Voice for Man radio is not corporate media and everything runs on donations. So please consider visiting avoiceforman.com and make a donation. We would also like to thank the artists De Prima Terra, Mbezna, Cristian Buica, the Iranian band Arsames, the DDG Project, and all the other artists that offered us their songs to use under Creative Commons license. Special thanks go to www.pacdv.com/sounds for putting the sounds of the jingles at our disposal. We would also want to remind the listeners to take the red pill. Thank you for listening to us and have a great evening. Ați ascultat Vocea Europei.